And I think that what differs from 2021, 2022 is that back at the time, because of the bubble and because of speculation, everybody was, building their marketing and their core value on technology and features and complicated stuff. But now, I think the best way to democratize this new practice that we bring in is to actually focus on the benefits.
Welcome to our latest episode of FUMO, the Future of Money podcast. Today, Gaurav and I have a special guest zooming in from France, William Bailey. William, you're in Paris?
Yeah, that's right. Hey guys, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Thank you for coming on our show. Thank you to the audience for joining us today. We are bringing the show supported by XVC Tech, an investor in innovative and emerging technologies. And this podcast, as ever, is produced by our friends at CFT. We're going to be discussing the intersection of blockchain, music IP, digital assets, and so much more. Gaurav and I are going to delve into why do we need music on chain? What is it like building a business on chain or off chain? Why do artists want to put their music on chain? Do investors and most importantly, users really care? William, thanks again for joining us. Tell
Pleasure.
us a little bit about what Bolero does, and then we're going to dive into some of the more meaty questions.
Yeah, of course. So Bolero is an infrastructure for music investment based on blockchain technology. So our mission is actually to generate a new revenue for creators based on their IP. So we feel like there is a huge value locked today into the music industry simply because, each time someone's record a new song or create a new work, a new body of work, there is IP underlying that is created. So what we thought at Bolero 3 years ago, and we've been there, building and iterating for 3 years now, we thought like, what about actually exploiting the untapped value of music IP to get into the music industry more liquidity and to create a new investment vehicle that can be actually profitable for investors, but as well fun and entertaining to use. So it's basically democratizing music as a new investment vehicle for both individuals, obviously, because we have a lot of
Mm.
music fans registered on the platform, but also for businesses, wealth managers, and assets managers. So basically all the finance professionals who would be interested to access to exclusive asset categories that are most of the time super profitable.
Now let's start with the artists. Let's start with the musicians. If I'm a emerging artist or an established hit musician, why would I care about having my music assets on chain? What is it from an artist perspective? What does it give me as a producer and artist having this on chain?
That's a really good question. And actually there is a specific answer for each artist category. So today at Bolero, we are categorizing each artist into three different verticals. So the first one are developing artists. So basically up and coming artists, newcomers on the scene. So these artists can be interested into tokenizing their music IP, their music rights, to actually access to a new financing method. So instead of creating a debt or instead of giving away a majority of their rights to a record label, they can actually sell like a little share of the IP. So it's discretionary. So most of the time, 10 to 15 to 20%. They can sell it and access the same liquidity that they would be accessing through traditional channels. So this is the motive for the developing artist. For emerging artists, if you are an emerging artist, you're entering a phase of your career through which you are trying to actually fidelize your audience, and you are also trying to build a long-term and resilient business model. So by talking about business model, we are a new tool that can actually create a new revenue that will let you generate more value from your music. But also it's a nice way to start putting a valuation on your work. Because each time you're creating a new record, as I've said at the beginning of this episode, you are creating new IP. So throughout your whole career, it's really interesting to start putting a price on your IP. And then if you are an established artist, which is the last category, so basically all the A-listers, all the headliners that you can see during concerts, live festivals, and on Spotify and YouTube, these guys, they can be actually interested to capitalize on their career. So maybe after 20 years of career or even 10 years for the most quick one and fastest one, you can be interested about actually cashing in on all your work. And instead of going to the private markets, to which it will take between 12 months to 18 months to actually set out your catalog, you can do it through Bolero and the blockchain in 1 week. So it's really about velocity, but also for the three categories, and this is what unites them, we have created a system that protects their creative control. So in the traditional model, when you sell to a private equity fund or to a major record label, you will actually lose your control. So once they have bought your catalog, you cannot say anything about how they are going to exploit it. But if you sell it through Bolero, you keep the control over the IP and the record, so nobody can exploit it without your commitment and your validation. So these are I'd say the main benefits of tokenizing music IP and actually leveraging Web3 as an artist, a producer, or a composer.
As an artist, you're basically becoming more of a entrepreneur or a self-owned business person rather than working for effectively a big record label where they own the IP. So you kind of avoid the situation we've had with, famous artists, right? Most recently, Taylor Swift having to buy back her IP or re-record her IP. Are there examples, William, that you've encountered in you personally with artists, musicians saying, love what you're doing, how do I join your platform? And vice versa, going, I'm an artist. Like, what is all this blockchain stuff? Like, I mean, isn't this just gambling and speculation that weirdos do in Silicon Valley or
No,
China or Dubai?
yeah, that's a really good question. The thing is, most of the artists we are working with, most of the composers and producers, they are basically entrepreneurs. So they are not into the technology industry, but they
Yeah.
are into the music industry and they are entrepreneurs. So they are just trying to figure out the best ways to have a decent business model that will be strong on the long term. The thing is, not all the artists are obviously knowledgeable about tech and Web3. So what we've been doing on the client side of the interface, so for investors, we are doing the same for artists. So we are basically abstracting technology. And it's been one of the core value of Bolero from the get-go. We are always abstracting Web3 technology because we feel like people, they don't need to know how it works deeply. They need to know that it exists. They need to know that like the infrastructure that we provide is powered by blockchain technology. But they don't need to know what is a wallet, what is actually an ERC20, an ERC721 or anything else. It's like we are using it as a tool and not a product. And I think that what differs from 2021, 2022 is that back at the time, because of the bubble and because of speculation, everybody was, building their marketing and their core value on technology and features and complicated stuff. But now, I think the best way to democratize this new practice that we bring in is to actually focus on the benefits of the solution. So whether you are an investor or an artist, if you are curious to know about how it works, like in backstage, how this whole system is working, we have all the related information displayed on our website and through the platform. So if you want to dig, you can dig. But if you don't want to be, digging into this topic and you just want to get the benefits, it's okay. So yeah, this is how we handle the situation. But I'd say, to be fair, that the first artists and I'd say the first established artists that we have been working with, they are basically the early adopters. And with each early adopters, there is technology. And I have to say that we were lucky enough to find great established artists who were actually pretty convinced about blockchain technology because of its philosophy. So they were convinced about the power of decentralization, but also because as entrepreneurs, they were trying to find solutions to their issues. And boom, Bolero is here. This is a solution. They try it out. They're satisfied. And then it's becoming a long-term tool for them into the business model.
Got it. I'd love to dig into the origin story of Bolero, how you got the idea of building it, but I want to bring Gaurav, my partner in crime, to the conversation to dig into that and unwrap that a bit more. So over to you, Gaurav.
Thanks a lot, Ronit, and William. Thanks again for joining us. I think, you know, just as Ronit said, love to get into this origin story. Nobody wakes up and says, "Hey, I'm gonna revolutionize, change, or make the music industry fair." There are people. There's a backstory to it. So, where are you coming from? Are you coming from a technology and IP lawyer background? Are you a musician yourself? Where did the idea come from, and why?
Hey, actually, I just woke up and said, okay, I want to change this.
You're the first guest. You're the first guest in the history of our show, our
No,
podcast
actually,
forever.
like, I'm just kidding. But the thing is,
Oh,
you gotta wake up one day and say, I want to focus 100% and put my energy and time into this new business. But
I'm with you.
uh, obviously, I took the time to actually, think about the vision, think about the market, get a lot of feedback. So what I was doing before building Bolero, I was a project manager in the AI industry. That's good as well. So I was working at a company called Smartly.ai. So I was basically creating and training NLP models for actually brands and companies which wanted to actually improve their customer relationship management. So that was my job before Bolero. So I did that for almost 4 years. But the thing is, I'm a tech lover, so I've always been digging and like blockchain. I've been, looking into this spectrum since 2016. And the thing is, in 2020, so I was still working at Smartly.ai as a product manager, but I was actually, like everybody around the world, and that was quite fascinating. But I was like thinking about my future, what I want to do, and I've been deeply passionate by both tech and music since I'm a child. So I was like, okay, what can I do? And I was lucky enough to have a few friends on the electronic music scene and the hip hop scene here in France. And during the lockdown, they were actually trying to figure out new ways to create revenue because uh, there were no more live sessions, there were no more concerts, so they had to find a way. And I was like, okay, maybe I can help them. So I've just, started to hang out with them, spend a lot of time discussing, talking about how they can find, this new revenue sources. And at the same moment, I was going down the rabbit hole regarding DeFi lending protocols. It was DeFi summer back then, 2020. And and yeah, and actually one morning, it hit my mind and it was like, boom, okay, blockchain music investment. Okay, in what can people invest actually into the music? Oh yeah, music IP. Yeah, because my friends with whom I've been talking for a few months, they all own IP actually. They have IP and they are thinking about it like, how can I make more money? How can I, generate a new revenue? How can I engage my fans? Man, you are sitting on IP. And this is the core observation before building Bolero. It was like, okay, so there is $41.5 billion in the world worth of IP. So that means that everybody, like each artist, each creator is sitting on IP that is not monetized. So it was like, okay, so blockchain looks fine to actually tackle this opportunity. And I was also concerned about when you own IP, you actually receive royalties. It goes with it. It's like owning a share into a company. If the company releases dividends, you will receive it, obviously through the banking system. But how can you handle thousands, like hundreds of thousands of payments through the banking system? It's almost impossible. And even further, if you talk about micropayments. So I was like, okay, blockchain is the perfect tool to actually tackle this value proposition. So what I did is basically, so back to my story, what I did is we are now in September 2020 and decided to quit my job. And I had actually a few tryouts about building a business. So I knew that what has been frustrating me was like not being able to build something by myself. So once I quit, I went to a coding bootcamp. So during 2 months, I was able to learn how to code. Um, so the basics, but in backend and front end. And I was like, okay, thanks to this, I will be able to build my own prototype and to try out my idea. And actually, during this bootcamp, I've met Arthur, who is now my associate and my CTO. So life brought us to each other, and yeah, this is how I fell in love with Bolero, this music industry opportunity, and actually changing the life of millions of creators.
So you have an existing industry which has a new problem, which is COVID. You have existing problems or problems that haven't been able to be addressed because now there's new technology and application of that technology and infrastructure. So the optimum time for you to say, how do I build and scale a business to solve the problem? And fortunate enough to also start building your team, which is something I want to understand as well. Now, when Ronit and I first started this podcast, we talked about the number of developers out there in the blockchain world, right? And Ronit, if you go back to our first 10 podcasts, the numbers are in the tens of thousands and then slowly growing up into touching 100,000 and then hundreds of thousands
Wow, amazing,
of
man.
of blockchain developers. You can almost chart that every time we have a conversation with somebody because talent, the landscape keeps changing, and so does experience. So, but in your case, you're not only looking at people from the blockchain space, but you must be looking at people who are IP specialists or people that work in the music industry. But I'm making assumptions. Can you tell us more about what your team looks like today? Who do you surround yourself with as the key people, and what do they bring to, making sure Bolero is a well-rounded product for your customers to use?
You know, when you're building something ambitious and when you want to have an international footprint, you obviously need to be surrounded with the right people. So what we've decided to do with Arthur from the get-go is actually building the team as such as it creates a bridge between technology and music. So actually at Bolero, we have two specific type of people. We have on the one hand, technology people. So developers, engineers, so people who have spent a lot of time building new products, building new infrastructure. So they have this experience and they are now putting their energy and their experience into Bolero to have the right suite of tools. On the other hand, we have music people. So basically, we have onboarded former artist managers. We have onboarded label executives. So people who have seen the issues from the inside and they have joined Bolero to solve them from the outside. And this is like this perfect balance between those two type of people that gives us an edge on the situation because we have the right views and each time we take a decision, we have the right mix of opinion and perspectives to be as proficient as possible. So this is the first layer, actually. So this is like the internal team. But now we are lucky enough to have great investors and also advisors. And if you look at the cap table of Bolero, we have music artists. So we have established artists such as writers, Petit Biscuit. We have famous producers. We have like actually famous label executives. They have actually invested into Bolero, and these guys are supporting us on the daily. And each time we have a question or a situation on which they can be relevant, we ask them for help. So this is the second layer. And then we have the last layer, which is basically the shareholders who are former entrepreneurs, who are successful investors, who have supported companies to scale internationally. And these guys are actually helping us to anticipate a lot of topics about growth and about, going to new territories, hiring, but also understanding the environment through which we are developing ourselves. So it's super important to be surrounded with the right people, but it looks super easy when I tell it like this, but it took us 3 years. Like when we started with Otter, to be honest, in 2021, like we started in November 2020, and we have created the company actually in February 2021. So we are celebrating our 3 years now. And at the get-go, we didn't have all these skills, and we've just reached out. So we've reached out to people who looked actually experts in our industry, experts in our topics. And, sometimes I've got some friends who are asking, how do you meet all those guys? How do you create business relationships with those famous artists? Man, it's just about showing up. And really, like, there is no magic recipe. It's just about showing up. And even if you are tired, even if you are not sure about the return on investment, about going to this conference or about going to this meetup, just show up. Just show up. And every time I didn't want to go to a conference, each time I went, I had a really good meeting with someone, or I met someone who's super valuable or super relevant in a specific topic. So yeah,
So I
this is
guess
the backstory.
the one lesson, if I could sum up what you've just told us about building Bolero and your journey on it, would be continually be persistent, and be persistent for yourself to be consistent as well. Just keep showing up and keep going and keep
For sure.
forging ahead. So
And
I think,
and
yeah.
just to add something, I think that the most difficult feat to perform for an entrepreneur is actually to federate from the get-go. And my next piece of advice would be just explain why you're doing this. And it's the best way to actually federate people. Because if you are always talking about the what, about the how, okay, this is like, I'm leveraging blockchain technology and decentralized tokens to actually create this new revenue. So now you can invest in some shares. Like, it's not, people cannot be rely on this, or they cannot be seduced by this. But if you explain your why you're waking up each day to build a new solution, a new tool, then you can federate.
Thanks, William. I think it's clear that, the passion is still there, 3 years and burning strong for you to continue building this out. So I think Ronit has some very, very, very next level questions about the industry and your peers, but I'm going to hand it back to Ronit.
I don't know if they're next level, but I just want to maybe hit pause and just reinforce what William just said. There's two really important points that obviously Gaurav is a multi-year entrepreneur, you know this. Just show up. That point, I think in so many aspects of our lives, whether you're building a on-chain music business like William, or running your fintech payment business in the Middle East, Africa region, Gaurav, you do. So much of the game is just showing up and not giving up when the chips are down or you don't feel right, And that was one thing William said that was really, really important, just showing up. There was another thing William just said that was really interesting, and I've forgotten what it was.
Short-term
He said
memory,
it's not
Linus.
about the how, but it's also about the why.
It's
Don't
about
forget.
the why.
It's
Thank you,
about
Gaurav.
the why,
It's the
Ronan.
why. It's the why. The
See, I'm
why.
listening. I'm listening.
Good. You listen. That was a test. The why. Yeah, it's the show up and remember your why. Now I want to just delve a little bit more into the crypto and blockchains side of it. Now, you said for the artists it shouldn't matter because you're abstracted. Bolero abstracts that away. You're giving them, can I say, a Web 2.5 solution, Web 2 at the front end and blockchain at the back end. You're kind of, we take care of that. But does you're still obviously dealing with blockchains. You're on at least one blockchain now. You might be more coming up. How important is the whole crypto aspect of it? So, crypto prices, most obviously Bitcoin, and then some other coins have been on a tear in the last 3, 4, 5 months. Does the crypto price matter? Whatever, it's Bitcoin or other coins, does that matter? um, when you're having a discussion with artists and investors about Bolero?
Um, to be honest, like there are different cycles and different points of interest. In 2021, people were afraid that blockchain technology was like terrible for the environment. So each time we were talking with an artist, it was like, yeah, but how do you save the environment and how do I make sure that I'm not polluting the earth because I'm releasing tokenized assets? So 2021, we had to have an answer regarding this topic. 2022, unfortunately, it's the bear market and crypto and Web3 isn't trendy anymore. So you've got to show that your business and your value proposition is not, like the health of this business is not correlated to the financial markets. And I think that it's something really important that we did with Bolero. It's always showing that the value of Bolero is not related to how the market is going. So artists are always caring about this. And finally, they are always, and like we have been witnessing this for 1 year now, they are trying to see in which way immutability of blockchain is dangerous on the like on the legal perspective. Because, at some point when you are creating an asset on the blockchain, it's like, okay, it will be there forever, and they want to make sure that, okay, the decision I take today, I will not regret it in 10 years or 15 years. So you got to show me how do you handle this, and you got to show me how your legal framework around the asset was built. So to be honest, I like the points of interest of today and of 2023 and now 2024. 2 years ago, it was cosmetic, I would say. Now it's like we're really diving deep into how it works, how it will be handled in several years. So what it gives me as a signal is that now artists are projecting themselves and their career with the blockchain. They were not doing this 2 years ago. Now they are actually considering of using this tool in 5 years, 10 years, and it's incredible. Because we've been witnessing the progress for 3 years now. It's like 3 years ago, having an artist thinking about, oh yeah, and in 5 years, if I want to do so, and in 10 years, if I've got a new record that is actually certified, it's worth a lot. How can I actually handle the market price changing and fluctuations? Like all those questions are super technical and specified. So yeah, I'd say that now artists are more picky and more technical. And regarding the crypto aspect and blockchain technology, they're actually trusting us. So as you've mentioned, currently we are using one protocol, but we are actually agnostic. So we plan to actually plug new protocols to the platform. And we will simply ask the artist. So we can suggest this protocol with these benefits. We can offer this protocol, just choose it. And based on their communities and based on their belief, they will be able to choose the protocol they will be releasing their assets. But we can see that only 10% or 15% will have a strong opinion on which protocol is better for them. Most of the time, 90% of the artists will be asking, guys, do whatever you think is better for me. So this is also where it's interesting. We are always talking about decentralization and the loss of intermediaries, but still, people from the real world and people who want to bring real world assets on the blockchain, they need to receive advices and they need to be supported throughout the journey.
I think, Gaurav, you want to jump in and ask about the broader market, right?
Oh yeah, I think from my perspective, putting on my investor hat for a moment, or wanting to understand the size of this opportunity, because what you're doing is you're not building a charity, with all due respect, you're building a business, right? And you've got investors. So what I'd love for you to give us some context and color is what kind of numbers are we talking about here? Because you're building a business with revenues, and my understanding is there's a lot of other big competitors out there in the market, or adjacent players in the market as well. So, can you tell us about what's the size of this? How big is the size of this market and this opportunity, and the numbers for you to be chasing this as a problem solving opportunity? And B, can you tell us about maybe what other people are doing in this space, or who's your closest competition and why they're also doing it, right?
Yeah, those are great questions. I think I'll take the first. So what you need to know is that actually the market worth is 41.5 billion USD. So there are 41.5 billion USD worth of assets available on the market to be tokenized. So what it means that each week, each month, each time we tokenize the new assets with Bolero, we give the opportunity to investors to actually access this value as a safe haven, because we are talking about IP, we are talking about, and I will get back to why it's interesting to invest in music, like in a really objective way. But there is a lot of value. Second thing is music is actually growing each year at double-digit rates. So obviously, like in Europe, in the US, those regions are already well, educated about streaming platforms, about paying for music. But if you take India, for instance, there is a three-digit rate of growth in 2023 about people actually paying a subscription and pouring money into music. So the scalability of this market is just huge. And what we've been observing is that records that were released 20 years ago or 30 years ago, so all this, vintage IP, as I like to call it, is making more money today than it was doing like 30 years ago. Like Michael Jackson's records are making more money now than it was doing in 1980. Just to give you a bit of insight, why is it interesting to actually getting the music investment game? If you take the Michael Jackson catalog, it's a super example. Michael Jackson's catalog was doing a 37 growth rate between 2020 and 2023 in revenues. Each year, the Michael Jackson's catalog was making $75 million of revenues. And we are talking about vintage records, so obviously it's MG. It's a classic. It will go through time. And in the same way, you're still listening to Mozart or Beethoven 300 years ago, you will be listening, like people will be listening Michael Jackson in 300 years. But just imagine the revenue. Like this guy is generating just the record. It's a passive revenue. It's fully passive. Passive revenue is 75 million. And it's just, it's a breaking news, but 3 days ago, Sony Music, one of the major record label, just bought this catalog for $600 million. So it's a multiple at 8 on the future revenues. And if, a company as huge as Sony, and if you have now private equity funds funded by Blackstone, by Morgan Stanley, by JP Morgan, if you have those guys pouring money into records and music IP, it means that there is money. So it's pretty simple. And yeah, this one, I'm gonna talk about them later. But just for you to know, the value is into music IP. And
I've been tracking them for 4 years since when they first came out. Yeah, very
yeah,
interesting.
and these guys are, to be honest, they are killers. I just think that their issue is that it's complicated for the stock market to apprehend and to anticipate how music works.
But I want you to
And
put a
this is the
pause on
key.
that. You have to pause on that because that's a separate can of worms once we open that up, because that goes into modeling and accessibility. So I want to take a pause on that piece and throw it back to Ronit again and see what he has to say about things as well on this front.
Oh no, I was quite happy to let William keep going there.
Yeah, I like to be honest, guy. I just want to close this topic about like music consumption and
Go for
music
it, go
market
for it.
Oh
with
yes, please.
with one figure, which is um, there are as well more and more independent artists,
Right.
and it will go way further with AI, but at a
Ooh.
scale you can't imagine. So what does it mean? It's getting more and more simple to create a record. It's getting more and more simple to distribute it and to monetize it. So what it means, more and more IP.
So
And like when I talk about independent artists, why so? It's because these guys they own their IP from the get-go.
let's
And
put it this
so
way. I mean, and give us examples, William, if you don't mind, because for our listeners, there'll be some that are very clued into this space about what revenue you can make, what you can do with the IP, what you can do with other things. But let's take, there's a very popular new artist, GZ out there. He's performing in Dubai as well these days. He's and someone like that who is of a younger age, right, won't be thinking of traditional ways of building revenues with his music. He probably will do, but probably maybe easier to work with someone like you and Bolero to understand other revenues. Can you tell us about examples of these revenues?
yeah, for sure. And this is where it gets exciting. People are already thinking about music money is equal to streaming. No, you've got 25 different revenue sources attached to one record. And the beauty of it is that when you like when an artist releases a record, each IP holder will receive a proportional share of the money generated on streaming, obviously, but downloads, physical sales, radio casting. There is something super juicy that nobody knows, which is called synchronization. So it's actually the work of putting a record into a movie, a TV show, or a commercial. You will also earn money on live venues casting. So, for instance, when an artist throw a concert in front of 50,000 people,
Yep.
he definitely makes money with the tickets, but he will be also earning money on the fact that he has played his records. So if I take a pretty clear example, um, when an artist makes like a medium range arena, like 20,000 people in an arena, if he plays his whole catalog, like let's say 2 albums and maybe 1 or 2 singles, for each track that has been played, there will be a percentage of the revenue that, like a percentage of the turnover made by the venue that will be redistributed to the IP holder. So if you set out 20,000 tickets, it makes a turnover, like it makes money. So let's say it makes, I don't know, let's keep those things simple. So it makes $20,000, for instance. On those $20,000, there will be a percentage that will be taken out and redirected to the IP holders of the songs that were being played during the show. So this is another like revenue source,
Wow.
but you also have the money coming from YouTube, you have the money coming from TikTok, you have the money coming from WeChat, and everything
So
is
wait a second,
monetized.
wait a second. You're telling me that if there's a live concert like Untold in Dubai with 20 artists, the venue can say, we've partnered with Bolero, and because we're partnering with Bolero, not only do you get paid your normal fees for performing and ticket sales, but you also get IP royalty sales because we've partnered with them for performing live. You get even more revenue.
So that's it, but even without Bolero, because this is the law, actually, this is how it is regulated today.
Wow.
Like you have what we call collective management organisms. So there are three big, like the three biggest are in the US, the UK, and in France. And these guys are responsible to collect this kind of tax everywhere in the world for their artists.
Yeah, but I guess
So
maybe they prefer it in crypto rather than fiat.
yeah,
I'm going to
and like
contact GZ right now. Just be right back.
no, yeah. So there are a lot of revenue sources, and what is um, to that extent, what is actually super interesting is that um, music IP is profitable on the long run. Like there is a steady yield over time. So, for instance, if you go on Bolero, let's take one of the records we have on the platform. So let's take Brothers by Rides, which is a platinum record that we have listed 1 year ago on the platform. In 1 year, this record has generated a yield of 10.6%. Okay, and the record is 8 years old. So even 8 years after the release, it's generating a 10.6% yield year. So this is like it shows like how I like to say that like catalogs are like good wine. Like it generates a lot of money in the first 18 months of the exploitation, so just after the release. But even 10 years later or 20 years later, they are still making a lot of money. But the thing is, they are not liquid, and this is where Bolero gets in. You gotta make that liquid. Because at the moment, it takes 12 months to 18 months to access these catalogs. You need a lot of money to enter these markets. So if you want to access catalogs, you will have to buy Justin Bieber's catalog at 200 million. You will have to buy Bruce Springsteen catalog at 500 million. But if you just have a spare $1,000, $10,000 to invest, you can't access this market. But with Bolero now, you can. So this is actually the center of the value proposition, access to exclusive piece of assets that will be valuable over time with a steady yield.
I mean, in a way, you just summarized or illustrated one of the most powerful use cases of tokenization, this ability to fractionalize large ticket sizes. And there's nothing larger than a music catalog. It's a bit like buying an Airbus A380 or something, the high end of the market.
10 of them. 10 of them.
Easy tiger. Maybe to wrap up this conversation, let's do a bit of kind of crystal ball gazing. We're sitting doing this conversation in 2030 in Paris or Dubai or somewhere else. what does good look like? What does success look like for Bolero and you, William, as an entrepreneur? And how will you have left your mark, the dent in the universe, in the music and digital assets universe? What will that look like?
Oh, I love this question.
I didn't have that in my prepared list of questions I gave you, so sorry to spring this on you, but
No, 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 no. Actually, I love this one,
yeah.
and you know why I love this one? It's because my answer changes every 6 months. You know
Nice.
what? Because I've got targets and objectives every
Yeah.
6 months, and every 6 months I want to become better. I want this business to get further. I want to get bigger, and
Yeah.
but to be
What was it
honest,
6 months ago? What was it 6 months ago?
6 months ago I wanted to like I'm gonna make it more simple than that. Like each year we're
Mm-hmm.
discovering a new aspect of the business that is
Mm.
super exciting and that is super valuable in the long term. So last year, I was thinking about, okay, I want to create, like, I want Bolero in 10 years to be this perfect merger between Coinbase and Spotify used on an
Mm.
international scale with like a tier one mobile app. This year, I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about, I want Bolero to be the Nasdaq of music with the largest music investment infrastructure in the world. You see how things evolve.
Right.
It's like it evolves because of your vision for like
Yeah.
your North Star should always be the mission and what you are trying to achieve. But how you get to this position and how you achieve this mission, it always changes around the like throughout the journey. But now I can say that like my dream and my target is that in 2030, Bolero is the largest music investment infrastructure in the world, powered by people and corporates, that has created a realm through which creators around the world can have a profitable business model from the get-go, since day one. And now you will not have medias talking, like always talking about the music industry, about, oh, it's broken, oh, there's no money for creators, blah, blah, blah. No, there's a huge stack of money into the music industry. It's just that it's not redistributed well enough. So I hope that my like Bolero's impact and footprint will be as positive as that.
Awesome. From Coinbase to Nasdaq, from one emerging company to the music, or the financial marketplace of music. William, thank you so much for joining us. If the audience wants to learn more about Bolero or yourself, what's the best way to do that? Is there a website, a Twitter handle? How do they
Definitely,
find out more
guys.
about you?
Definitely, guys. And thank you for listening to us. So we have a special gift and special offer for the people who will be connected to this episode. I think you will find below, maybe in description or in the links, you will find a special offer link to towards Bolero. So if you create your account with this link, you will be granted a 10% discount on your first investment. So we've got a lot of assets already listed. We are releasing 3 to 4 assets a week, sometimes with really limited supply. So people are actually crazy, and in the first 20 minutes, we have generally sold out
Mm-hmm.
the assets. So yeah, just go through the link, enjoy your first investment, and if you want to dig a little deeper, you can follow us on the social medias. So Bolero Music is the handle, and we have a Discord as well server that is open to anybody. So and also I'm a CEO, but you can reach out to me anytime. And I love to spend time in my direct messages talking with people because feedback is key and feedback is precious. So everybody is welcome. And if you want to actually, as we say, create your own record label, because Bolero is a record label for every
Yeah.
pocket, just join us today.
So there we are. Create your own record label and slide into William's DMs. With that, we are a wrap.
Thanks a lot, William.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
Ciao.